All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to 1 Million Cups St. Paul. Mai is here. Mai, raise your hand back there. Or she can't hear me. She's concentrating. She brought donuts. She's our donut sponsor, Jemakin. So feel free to eat the donuts. They're delicious. And for those of you who have never been to 1 Million Cups St. Paul before, or 1 Million Cups in general, this happens every Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. We have startups that pitch for 6 minutes, and then we get 20 minutes as a community to give them feedback and help them out. So make sure you have some great questions and feedback for them after they're done pitching. This is Jeff, everybody. Jeff, raise your hand. Yes. Jeff is from Sioux Falls. He's visiting, and he is possibly moving here. So please talk with him and tell him how awesome it is, because Minnesota does have a great retention rate of people who move here. We just got to get them to move here first. So talk with Jeff afterwards. And let's see, I don't think I have any other announcements. I think with that, I'm going to turn it right over to Tony from Specialisterne.
Oh, thank you. All right, so to most people, the dandelion is a weed, right? It's out of place. It's something that needs to be taken out of your yard, taken out of your garden. But in fact, the dandelion is just a plant that's actually pretty successful. And in many ways, it's even better than grass, right? Because you can eat it. Most of us don't eat the dandelion, but you can. You can pick the greens, and you can use them in a mixed green salad, and you probably wouldn't even notice the difference between what you have right now and what's there. Also, you can take the stems and the flowers, and you can turn them into wine or beer, right? And you can dry the flowers and turn them into tea, medicinal tea. So in fact, the dandelion is actually a plant that has value. The problem with the dandelion is it's out of context. And if instead of putting it in the yard, you put it in a garden, you put it in a kitchen garden, then all of a sudden you have a plant that has value. At Specialisterne, we see people who are on the autism spectrum much in the same way, in the labor market, much in the same way we see dandelions in a yard. The problem is, in many cases, they're out of context. If we can instead view them for their strengths as opposed to their weaknesses versus grass, we can reap the benefits. And we're already seeing some of those benefits come to light in the places where we're working. So the company name is Specialisterne. It's from the Danish word Specialisterne. We say Specialisterne because, frankly, it's just a lot easier than the Danish word. But the Danish word means the specialists. So what are we? Specialisterne is a socially focused business. It's a self-sustaining model that values people on the autism spectrum in the labor market. We recruit, we assess, we train high-functioning individuals and then contract or lease them out to employers so they can get the benefit of the strengths of people on the autism spectrum, which include detail focus, perseverance, focus on task, ability to maintain concentration, loyalty, benefits that are really, really good and that are valuable in the labor market. So why? As a socially focused business, we focus on a problem. There's no way to avoid the incidence of autism are up, and it isn't simply because diagnosis. There's a number of reasons. We don't know why. We don't know why, and there's no cure. So all of these things that we think of as a childhood disease, these kids who are having autism, they're not going away. They're getting older. And starting this year, every year, 50 to 60,000 people in the United States move into the world of work who are on the autism spectrum. And either they can be employed or they can be on the public rolls. But one way or the other, we need to figure out what to do with these folks. Because over 10 years, that's 500,000 people. And over 20, it's 1 million. That's a lot of people that could contribute to the labor market. We need to figure out ways to fix it. But this is beyond that, because for me, clearly, it's a personal goal. And the reason it's a personal goal is because of this. The one in the orange is Hal, the one in the red is Fritz. And those are my two sons, both gifted and talented kids, both on the autism spectrum. And I need to change the world of work for them, not just change them. The world of work needs to be able to accommodate their gifts. So I need to find ways, and we need to find ways to start including people on the autism spectrum in the world of work. And what I plan to do is just change the whole world of work, and then when they go into the world of work, I'll get another job. It'll be fantastic. So the real problem, though, for people on the autism spectrum isn't that they're not capable. It's that there's a misperception about how they present. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to just go on. That was about the end of it. So we started in Fargo. And one of the questions I get when I tell people that we started in Fargo is, why Fargo, right? I mean, this is a good question. Why Fargo? And the reason is very much a reason that we're starting to see here in the Twin Cities and throughout the upper Midwest, which is, one, there's a tech worker shortage. We need people with skilled abilities. We need people with the capacity to be skilled. There's just simply not enough people. Two, there's full employment. And we're close to that here, but in Fargo and in North Dakota, when we started a year and a half ago, the unemployment rate was 2%. There simply were not enough people. And now in Minnesota, it's 3.8%. We're nearly as close to full employment as we can be. There's just a need for more people engaged in the labor market. And this one is really common. So you start to see this in tech circles or in skilled trades where you get labor market churn, where one person has worked for a number of different companies and everybody kind of knows everybody, and it's circling around, and it's the same 100 people, it's the same 200 people. There's no new people in the labor market, it's just churning. And then the last one was that in Fargo, there's a spirit of entrepreneurship. They're willing to take chances on new things because there's a need. They recognize that that's the way they want to be vigorous and grow. And then the other reason is that we had partners. We pitched the idea around. We were up in Fargo, and we found both an investor, the Ann Carlson Center, who would say, yeah, we'll give you the startup capital to get going. And we found businesses, Myriad Mobile, Sky Blue Technologies, Apario, and Ide Bailey, the accounting firm, who would hire our folks and bring them on board and let them start doing work where that we could start showing success. But I think an important note is to know that this is not charity. This is doing good and doing good businesses, doing good business. The businesses receive good value out of this. They're getting workers who are extremely competent, in many cases are outperforming the neurotypical worker. They just needed the opportunity to kind of access that thing. The mutual benefit, of course, is that then these people are no longer on the unemployment roll. They're starting to feel the value that they want, which is the same value we all want, which is to be valued in the labor market. So then lastly, what do we need? We would like to get started here in the Twin Cities, and simply put, what we need is partners. We need companies that are saying, we need people. We could figure out how to make this start. And that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. I do have a microphone if you have questions, if you wouldn't mind using it so everyone can hear your question. That'd be great.
So Tony, can you be more descriptive on your need for partners? What do those partners look like? What skill gaps are you trying to fill, or work product gaps, and how can we be of help?
Sure. So the niche that we first always have targeted, at least we had been targeting, but we found we just had more capability in, was software testing or quality assurance. So this is a place where detail focus, being able to spot deviation from pattern. This is a place where folks on the spectrum really can show extreme ability, right? So we use that. But any place where there's detail orientation, so any business that has some kind of work, so for instance, maybe running reports, or you have a place where you're having to take something from a spreadsheet and make sure it gets into your ERP or CRM system appropriately. Those kind of tasks that either one, you're piecing out so everybody has to do, or two, you have one person who kind of has to do all of that work all the time. That's a place where we can get somebody in and start to really fill that niche. So for instance, at Ide Bailey, they were running these reports, and they'd had to have a team of 5 spend 2 hours every morning run these server reports, because they do server backup. And it was taking them then 10 hours, 10 man hours, because the task was just so onerous. People couldn't stand doing it, so they were slow at it. We put somebody in place, and now he does it in 2. The the entirety of it. It's efficient, it's better, the quality is better, and they don't have to have their team doing it, so their team can stay focused on outside tasks where they perform better.
Tony, is there ongoing education or feedback for the employer or the employee around the interaction or conflicts that may arise or misunderstandings?
Sure. So, clearly that's one of the big hurdles, right, is that people are like, well, this sounds like a good idea, but I'm a little nervous about it. So we remain the employer of record. And then we support that person and we support the employer to make sure that that match is good. And typically, we really develop a relationship with the frontline supervisor, so the person who is there giving the task direction, because that's the person who really is impacted by it the most. And what we found is, at first, the person reacts pretty dramatically to things that are pretty typical in the workforce. So like, they're 3 minutes late. Is this going to be a pattern? Which isn't something you'd necessarily ask of a person who is neurotypical, but this is a concern. And then we can talk through, yeah, well, let's see if that is, or no, I think we're fine, right? So we just help coach through that and make sure things are going to be okay. But I have to be honest, in most instances, we're there, and eventually the supervisor is like, you need to leave me alone, we're fine, just go away, right? We're okay.
So can you describe your economic engine? Are you a staffing model then?
So we work in two ways, right? So one would be a leasing. We don't really, it's kind of staffing, so yes, that's how we do it. We contract the people out as a leased employee. We're looking to do leasing, so we're looking for positions that are going to last. We're not doing temp work. We want to keep people in place, or we do contract work. So if you're doing software in the software development field, that's more common, so we will do a kind of a contract work model. So yes, kind of staffing, modified. But we're a nonprofit, so we're not looking to kind of enrich. We just need to get ourselves cutting even and getting people into place, working, creating that business revenue.
You're actually a 501c3?
We are. We were looking to do the L3C designation, the kind of social business, but it's just not accepted enough, and we're going to be multi-state. At the time, North Dakota had it, Minnesota didn't. The IRS is still trying to figure out how they're going to kind of look at that, so we just went 501c3.
Then how do you actually do your recruitment for your staff that you're contracting out? What does that look like?
The specialists, frankly, that has been the least of the least of the difficulties. We get contacted from all over the country. So when we first started in Fargo, we had somebody move from Duluth, somebody move from Kansas, somebody move from Montana, because they're really wanting to work, but they're struggling to engage. So at this point, I have a kind of a list of about 300 people who are interested in working, who are ready to go. There's at least 60 here in the Twin Cities who are looking.
How employment ready are your people when they first talk to you? You mentioned you do some assessment and some training, so could you talk a little bit about that process?
Sure. I think the crucial thing is that we're going to work with them to make sure that they're wanting to work, because that's the key, right? If they're not wanting to work, then clearly they're not going to work. So we need to make sure that we understand how ready they are. And then over the process, so we take a couple of weeks with them to figure out where they are. During that time, we're figuring out, can you work? How much can you work? Most of our people burn pretty hot, so they might never be a 40-hour work week. They might be a 30-hour work week, and at 31, they really tail off. So we work with them to figure out where that is. But by the time they're going out, they're ready to work. Because clearly for our business model, they have to be.
Have you considered changing your branding?
Not at this point.
The only reason I say that is if you're looking for really shaping or putting people into employment and having the employer see it as a value and not that charity, coming at it from how nonprofits typically market or brand themselves is from that social need or that social need component. But you're really approaching it from a market need, right? And so having more of your messaging and your identity focused on that instead of any social component would be kind of interesting. And specifically because the term geek has become so trendy, right? A geek, to be a geek, that's real, and it's a really positive thing now. And Geek Squad started that decades ago, but now A geek means someone who's so like passionate or interested in this one thing that it's like so consuming to them. But that's been seen as such a positive and a benefit. And so you're creating a staff of individuals who are so focused and task oriented that are fulfilling this market need instead of, and they happen to be individuals with autism. But it's really that they're very focused and skilled individuals that are going to fulfill a need for a company that just happen to be individuals with autism.
Sure.
You mentioned the like a range of autism. What's the term you used?
Spectrum?
Yeah, spectrum. Describe the spectrum and what and how do parents determine where they are? Who determines where someone is on the spectrum?
Well, it's a moving thing, and that's why it's one of the difficulties of it, right? So, people's autism is going to exhibit in many ways. It's a spectrum disorder, and it affects what's called executive function. So where they are on the spectrum is really dependent on how much executive function they have. And the people that we target have significant executive function. So most of our folks live independently, they drive. So they're capable people. They're not a person who is shut down, right? So their autism is exhibiting a slightly different way. But a parent is going to take their child typically to get diagnosed, and once they're diagnosed on the spectrum, they remain on the spectrum. But their abilities change, of course, over time. It's not us. They're not stuck as a person. They're going to develop, because it's an executive function and not an intellectual disability. They're going to learn. They're going to grow. In many cases, they're going to be extremely intelligent people and be able to take in lots of information. Mm-hmm.
Do you market to parents, and do you have educational materials for them? So if they have an autistic child, this would be something that's in the back of their head for the future.
Certainly, we're contacted by a lot of parents, but we don't market directly to parents because we only work with adults. And most of the time, the people that we talk to, if we're talking to people, we talk to colleges, because there's people coming through the college system that are kind of finishing their degree and really are kind of at sea. They don't really have a good step. So those are the people that we're targeting. I think the average age of our individuals is 25. So most of our people are well beyond that. I think people on the autism spectrum clearly have challenges. So when they're coming out of high school, they're typically not ready to go to the world of work. I think there's a good question about whether anybody coming out of high school is ready to go to the world of work, but that's particularly true for our folks.
In searching for partners, what are the assurances that partners will have that, maybe the first person doesn't work, that sort of thing? What sort of assurances, or, obviously the training, I'd be more interested to hear an actual example of where, it took one or two people to find the right fit for a partner, that sort of thing.
So exactly because of that, we haven't really had to do multiple fits, because we work in advance with the person and we're working in advance with the company. So we're trying to find the task and the detail-oriented work that they're going to do, and then we're recruiting into that position. So the people we place typically have been very successful. We haven't yet found somebody who doesn't work because, again, it's incumbent upon us to not have that hiccup. So as of yet, I got to be honest, we haven't found that. And part of that's because I think our own, Specialistern's own conception of what people on the autism spectrum are capable of. Frankly, they're people and they're capable and they adjust and make do. So, not only are they good at their work, but they're probably more adaptable than we say they are.
Sure. And just a follow-up question on that. With your assessment to make sure that they can fit, is that something you all have developed? Is that proprietary, or is that some other?
Yeah, so the whole company started in 2004 in Denmark, and they've built this kind of assessment model over the last 10, 12 years. So yeah, we have very specific things that we're trying to adjust to. And by the end of it, we have what's called a business profile, which is a pretty extensive, 3 or 4 page document that we share with the employer about what we see in this person, where we see, obstacles might be, and where we think their real strengths lie.
So have you developed a sweet spot, basically, the type of businesses that you really can help effectively, and what type of demographic numbers are those?
You know, like I said, originally it was mostly software. So, you know, our first customer in Fargo was Myriad Mobile, and we came in, frankly, as their QA shop. I mean, we came in, we placed people, they were doing all of their QA. But then we got this company, Appario, and one of our folks who we just didn't think was going to be capable of quality assurance, and he would have been a person that we would have said, this just isn't a good fit for you. He went and started working with them, and they do helicopter assemblies to make sure that the helicopters stay even, so they work on those things. So it's really very high-end, lots of steps, and he's got an extreme, as many people on the spectrum do, memory, so he's able to remember all of the steps. He doesn't make any errors, and his pieces are all good. So it was a great fit. So I think really it's more size-wise, because it takes some steps to get there, and you kind of have to have a culture that's going to be a medium-sized company, medium to small-sized company tends to work better. But that being said, then we landed I. Bailey, which is a huge, you know, multi-state accounting firm with, you know, I think 2,000 employees. So really it's mostly people who are willing to say, you know, let's look at a way to get this started.
We have one more question out here, comment, piece of feedback for Tony to make sure that he's successful in Minnesota.
Download your YouTube video, keep it locally so you don't have to rely on internet.
It's a good thought.
Any other pieces of feedback, comments, questions? Well then, we always end on, after this conversation, Tony, what can we do for you?
You know, that I think we're looking for partners, and certainly we're having conversations with folks in the Twin Cities, but we're looking for companies that have that kind of open culture, that are looking to make a difference, and also have a need for detail workers. So, you know, any thoughts that you have on that are certainly valuable to us. I mean, that's really the most important part. If we can get folks working in the world of work, then we can have success. Yep, thank you.